What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're talking about NIO. The company has just released its December and 2018 delivery numbers, so we're going to go through those. I've also been doing a bunch of behind-the-scenes research on the company, talked to someone who visited in China on the ground, talked to customers, so I want to do a sort of a full update on the company. Let's start with the new delivery numbers. So NIO in Q4 2018 has delivered 7,980 cars. This was up more than 100% from Q3 2018, and their goal was to deliver 10,000 units in the year 2018, their first year of actually producing and delivering a car, and they did it. So huge milestone. Congrats, NIO. The car they're selling and delivering is the ES8, which is a 7-seater luxury SUV, sort of like a Model X competitor, although it does sell for about half the price of the Model X in China, but still sort of a luxury premium SUV. If we take a look at the sales on a monthly basis, this is what we're looking at. A record hit in December. They delivered 3,318 units. So really impressive to see NIO go from nothing, some being sort of vaporware company, what I would consider like all of these EV startups, they, make a big splashy unveiling of like, oh, here's our car, we're going to scale up to production, we're going to, be the Tesla killer, etc. They never deliver. It always takes too long. NIO has been the opposite. They are scaling like crazy and faster than my expectations. And so moving to the financials, this is what NIO looks like through the first 9 months of this year. These are the real numbers that we've seen so far. So pretty big losses. It's a very capital intensive business, but they did have 221 million in revenue, with about over 200 million of that revenue coming just in the last quarter. And so now for my old estimates for the full year and for next year, these are my original projections, which I've actually had to revise upwards after the new numbers. But this is what they originally were: 648 million scaling to 2.5 billion. Now I've had to up that to 743 million in revenue for 2018 because they delivered more cars than I was expecting, about 20%. They did about 210 million in Q3 2018 revenue, and they more than doubled deliveries. So it looks like they could post about 500 million, maybe even a little above that per my estimates, in revenue in Q4 alone. So NIO is already at a $2 billion run rate plus business per my calculations as of Q4. So an unbelievably, just out of nowhere explosion. So I've had to re-up my revenue estimate there. And then for Q3, for 2019, I upped my estimate from 2.5 billion in revenue to 3 billion. I've kept the losses the same. We're going to get a lot more clarity on their spending structure when we actually see their financial report, which is probably going to come out in the coming weeks. So that is the update on NIO. The company has launched their ES8. They've delivered it. They're scaling it. They're still losing a lot of money. But, why am I paying attention to this company? Why do I think they're the real deal? Why am I following this closely? Okay. Reason number one, NIO IPO'd in the US. That's a strong signal. They IPO'd in the New York Stock Exchange, even though they're just selling their cars to China right now. They have global ambitions. This is one of the first times I think we're going to see a luxury consumer brand from China go global. Can you name one Chinese luxury brand that has really tremendously done well overseas and expanded globally? I can't. I think NIO may break the mold and be the first one, and the most important reason being why the Chinese government and tech scene wants them to be. Chinese government is giving huge subsidies to electric vehicles. They're clearly on NIO's side. NIO is the backing of Tencent. So there's just a lot of behind the scenes momentum pushing NIO forward from the Chinese government, which I think is a huge reason to watch this company and take them seriously. And the early execution has shown that. The second thing about NIO that I think is so interesting is this is not just another automaker, car manufacturer. They are building this sort of premium technology lifestyle brand that is very unique, unlike something I've ever seen. The biggest thing being on this, the difference here is the NIO app. So they have this NIO app, which at first I sort of wrote off of like, okay, of course they have an app with the vehicle owners. And then as I was looking into the data, as of NIO Day and like about a month ago, they have 200,000 daily active users for their app. So wait, let's take a step back. How do they have an app with 200,000 daily active users, even though they've only sold 12,000 cars in their entire existence? That doesn't make sense. They have 20 times the amount of people using their app as customers driving around. Well, because it's more than just your car. So I actually downloaded the app myself, and it's really interesting. So it has like 4 different tabs in the app. You can chat with other community members. There's sort of like a main, profile Instagram like feed with like likes and comments. And I looked and the engagement was crazy on the recent posts that they were doing. It looks like people were congratulating them for the new delivery numbers. Then they have another page, which is like, you can even order a vehicle from. Then they have like I said, like this chat function where you can actually chat with different members of the NIO community. And then they have this other page that was like an e-commerce looking store where you could buy different like household knickknacks. And so I didn't really get how it all ties together, but clearly there's this community in the NIO app. Usage of the app, I think, is a leading indicator of demand for NIO's vehicles. And it's a really good sign to see the community hugely taking off. And even more on the app, I talked to someone who is actually, I can't really mention who they are, what they work for. They're in the auto industry. They went to China. They talked to NIO customers. We're doing some really interesting DD. And I saw all the pictures from that DD trip, and they were talking to owners. And that person told me that in talking to owners, they were really blown away by the brand that NIO had built, by the sense of community that NIO had built, by the quality, the fit and finish of the cars. Like, it really felt like this was the real deal, and customers loved the app. And one tidbit was that the NIO app was in the 4 apps on the bottom of your screen, which are your most used apps. The most valuable real estate on people's smartphones was the NIO app, and they used it every day, and they loved it. They would chat with friends, they would share pictures. So not only am I seeing the NIO app, and they're claiming 200,000 people are using it. Not only are they putting it on its website, not only did I download it myself, but I'm also hearing anecdotal evidence that in China, people love it. I also looked up the App Annie data, and it shows that, pretty strong numbers for the NIO app in China. It was like, it was around the 200th most downloaded app and has been for months, staying there pretty consistently. So good usage there as well. So, NIO is this company, it's almost been described to me as something that's like a hybrid of Tesla, Apple, and WeWork. Beyond having these cars, beyond being this premium luxury brand that's also kind of a fashion company, they're also doing these things called NIO houses, which are sort of these like co-working office kind of lounge spaces. I really don't get it. I want to go to one myself, but apparently they're different than retail stores. They're more like WeWork style for the NIO community. So this is a really interesting new sort of tech company that we're seeing come out of China. And what's crazy is NIO is just a 4-year-old company, and they're growing like crazy, and they're just getting started. I mean, right now they have the NIO S8, and they're about to expand to the NIO S6, which is a cheaper, smaller 5-seater version of their SUV, which is probably going to expand the addressable market for NIO in a huge way. And that's launching in 2019. They just unveiled it. They're taking reservations, and I checked the website. They say they're starting deliveries in the second quarter of 2019. For the Premier Edition, Performance Edition is in the third quarter, and then Standard Edition is in the fourth quarter. So literally, in June 2019, they're going to be launching their second car with an even bigger market. So the pace that we're seeing NIO launch vehicles, scale up production, and really make that connection with consumers is unparalleled in the auto industry. They're the only thing moving. They're moving way faster than Tesla, and in some ways, they're actually ahead of Tesla. They have this really interesting little thing in the car, which I mentioned before, but the more and more I learn about it, the more fascinating I get. It's called like Nomi, which is this little virtual AI sort of assistant that you can talk to, that will help you navigate, that will help you, control any sort of function in the car. So they have this smart artificial intelligent assistant. They're also working on autonomous vehicle features for their NIO cars. What's even crazier is through the app, you can request, service and things like that, but you can also request to get it charged, because that's, of course, one of the huge pain points for electric vehicles, charging. So NIO has come up with all sorts of different features. They have this thing where they'll drive up a truck to you, and that can charge up a third of your battery in 10 minutes, and you can just request it through the app. They also have like battery swap stations that can swap your full battery within 3 minutes. And apparently there's, a good chunk of NIO customers are actually ordering the car with this option where you can lease the battery. So you pay 14 or 15 grand less for the car because you don't pay for the battery, but you pay like a monthly $150 fee, and then you get access to these swapping stations. And so, I don't know, a ton of different innovation from NIO that we're seeing in some ways ahead of Tesla. And so I think this is a really interesting company to watch. The December numbers were killing it. I've had to revise my financial guidance. The ES6 is coming. NIO should be on everybody's radar. I thought originally when this IPO'd and they were worth a few $1 billion, I was like, wow, this is vaporware. It's another BS company. Like, I'm not buying it. I'm a skeptic. Watching NIO execute in the past 4 to 5 months and doing more homework on the company, I've really come to appreciate this is a serious contender. I think NIO is like the number 2 electric mobility company that's disrupting the industry that I'm watching behind Tesla, and I don't say that lightly. Sort of had to recalibrate all my expectations for NIO. Yeah, they're worth a couple $1 billion, but we've seen them go from 0 in revenue run rate to over a $2 billion revenue run rate, about to launch an even cheaper car, probably heading towards a $5 billion revenue run rate sometime next year. So this is a company whose price sales multiple is compressing radically. If we can see gross margin improvement, if we can see operating margin improvement, if we see them launch more cars, like, I can easily see a path for NIO to be a $50, $100, $150 billion company in the pretty near future, especially given the pace of electrification in China's vehicle industry. China wants to go electric. They're moving so quickly in that direction. They're subsidizing it. NIO's the vanguard. I mean, China alone is a mega opportunity, and I think they're going to export this technology to the US, to Canada, to Europe. And once they do that, the addressable market's going to expand. And if you think about it, NIO is half the price of the Tesla in China. And yes, once Tesla starts building its cars in China, they don't have to deal with the tariffs. They don't have to deal with importing it. The costs will come down and merge. I bet you NIO is willing to build cars really cheaply and do it at very, very thin or even negative profit margins to get market share up front, which I think is smart. And I think they're going to do that, and that's going to make them incredibly competitive and a threat. And this is one of the reasons why I think like companies like Ford, GM, Volkswagen, BMW, the luxury automakers are screwed. I don't think they can compete with Tesla, and I definitely don't think they can compete with NIO, and NIO is going to come for them as well. Anyway, so that's my rant on NIO. I'm pretty excited and fascinated to follow this company. Would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Please post it. Thoughts, questions, feedback, skepticism, anything. Also, a huge shout out to Hyperchange's Patreons, fans, and supporters for pledging to support the channel. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.